長様より大老職
大坂へ戻りたいと言うてきた。
I think he can still make it.
Do you mind about bathing?
そなたの間もなく落ち葉の方が虎長を弾劾せねばな。
弾劾じゃ。
我ら大老会議は動きを封じ、
あのボンクラか。
前田殿を推挙いたしたが、前田殿は王の
残されますなんだゆえ。
詰めておいた浪人の一団が
主人は
文太郎であったのか。この記事は
承知しております。
いつまでも甘えるでない。もうないがの餌で釣らねば動かぬ狩りをさせるのじゃ。
One of my first chores was cleaning game.
お分かりでござい。
心得ましたか。
口にする者には安心様の動画
お見えでございまする。
わしもここに投留する。万人の奥方とはどんなもの。
The fifth episode of Shogun begins with Buntaro and a massive army led by Toranaga arriving in Ajiro. When Buntaro returns from the dead, Mariko and Toranaga discuss it. Toranaga claims that Buntaro escaped Kiyama and Ishido's attack because he had assistance from a group of Ronin. Toranaga receives Mariko's meticulous notes on John's work and informs her that she will not be moving out of John's house to live with Buntaro. Buntaro will instead take up residence at John's home. Mariko will be able to help John and her husband in this way. It is clear that Toranaga is not informed of the latest events in Mariko and John's relationship, therefore he is unable to predict what would happen in that home. His thoughts are mostly focused on Nagakado's choice to murder Jozen. In an attempt to please his father, Nagakado kills a pheasant, but Toranaga hands it to Mariko and instructs her to give it to John as a thank you gift. Next, Toranaga goes on to correct Nagakado for his ignorance. Even though he wasn't there, he urges his son to exercise caution when it comes to encouraging violence since he is aware that Nagakado's actions are a result of Yabashiga and Omi. After receiving the pheasant as a present from Toranaga, John chooses to hang it outside to decay and prepare it for a supper he enjoys. Fuji begins setting up distinct areas for the preparation of traditional Japanese cuisine and meals for the Anjin. However, Buntaro's presence cuts that short. After saying some critical things about John and Fuji, Buntaro announces that he will return for supper. I will talk about this helmet and have a few things to say about it shortly. In order to proceed with Toranaga's impeachment, the Regents' Council convenes to determine Toranaga's successor. However, their inability to agree on whether the council should be more country or more Christian appears to be tearing him apart. Even worse, Ishido ends up with Jozen's head, which forces him to intensify his preparations to eliminate Toranaga and his clan. Yabashiga is confronted by Toranaga about Jozen's fate. Saying he was the one who persuaded Nagakado, Yabashiga attempts to put Omi under the bus because he believes it would keep him in Toranaga's good graces. By designating Omi as the commander of the Anjin's artillery regiment, Toranaga deceives Yabashiga. Yabashiga is definitely enraged by this. Omi declares that he is prepared to resign from his role as the head of Anjin's artillery division. Although Omi is that army's formal commander, according to Yabashiga, Yabashiga is really in command of everything. Then, in order to let Ishido know that Yabashiga is still on his side, he sends Igarashi, that would be Hiro Kanagawa, in case you haven't guessed, to Osaka. You should look at his acting credits to see what a legend he is. Meeting Miraji, the most valuable samurai in Toranaga's collection, actual name Tonomoto Akanao, Toranaga informs him that Yabashiga is looking for a spy. According to Toranaga, Miraji only has to toss a dummy in Yabashiga's direction to trick him into thinking the spy he's been looking for has been apprehended. John rushes to Mariko, who is sitting alone in a remote part of the forest, rather than fulfilling Fuji's request to dispose of the rotting pheasant. John is informed by Mariko that they shouldn't be seen together anymore. If Mariko wants to get rid of Buntaro, John instructs her to do it. He is told a story by Mariko about the swords he is carrying. She claims that in order to maintain Fuji's feeling of honor for her father, her grandpa purchased the swords from an inebriated warrior, not because her father died a hero. Mariko makes a connection between this story of ignorance and the reality that she is refusing to give Buntaro what he truly desires, her hatred. John makes the point that Mariko is being wounded in the end and shouldn't be making herself go through this in order to exact revenge on Buntaro. That man is a moron, and he won't get Mariko's clever kind of discipline. And what good is it if he doesn't realize that he is being punished? Mariko warns John to stay away from her and will not stop doing what she is doing, even if it means being a little more overt in her disdain of Buntaro. When John gets home, he discovers that Yuijiru has been slain for having touched the pheasant. John said that it was illegal to eat pheasant. It seems that Yuijiru put his life in danger since the smell of the dead bird was unbearable, which was sufficient justification for his murder. It was Fuji who gave the order. She begs John to also murder her for this reason. All of this disgusts John, who urges Fuji and her crew to leave him before he makes a snap decision. Afterwards, Miragi's painting of Yuijiru as the spy appears to have persuaded Yabashige that Toranaga's spy has died. I'm not quite sure what this specific storyline is about. Is Yuijiru dead because he touched the pheasant, or did Miragi kill him to keep up the pretense that Toranaga's spy is dead and subsequently kill him for defying John's orders? In either case, I believe that John learns a valuable lesson about caution from Yuijiru's death, which occurs off-screen, incidentally, regardless of the cause. He has been demeaning the Japanese thus far for taking everything so literally. But as he watches a violent earthquake take so many lives at the end of Shogun Episode 5, he comes to the realization that life is incredibly short and shouldn't be squandered carelessly. He needs to make sure that his words and deeds have some substance. The story about Yuijiru's death fits in nicely with the themes of Mariko holding in her resentment of her husband to prevent Buntaro from experiencing catharsis and Fuji's grandpa lying to her about her father's sword in order to preserve her sense of self-respect. John had intended to go from Japan with his troops, but he chooses to stay when the earthquake strengthens his relationship with Toranaga. In order to give Toranaga a sense of respect, something that was lacking due to Fuji's grandfather's deception, he even lends him his swords, which Toranaga loses in the landslide. Speaking of Fuji, despite her injuries, she makes it through the earthquake. When she sees that John is no longer upset with him, she appears content. How much John is developing as a character is demonstrated by a brief image of him rearranging Yuijiru's rock garden. Subsequently, there is a really scary moment, yes, much scarier than a deadly earthquake, in which Lady Okiba sees her son and starts talking to Ishido. She expresses gratitude to Ishido for helping her escape Edo, but she also highlights how Toranaga subverted the council by denying it the ability to vote on any matter. Ishido makes an effort to persuade himself that he is making some headway in his efforts to remove Toranaga from the Council of Regents. He is informed by Lady Okiba that the council had an opportunity, but they wasted it. She will now make all of the decisions, while seeming to be protecting the heir apparent, and the council will report to her. Fumi Nikaido demonstrates her acting talent in this little sequence, and I'm excited to see what she has in store for the next episodes of Shogun.